All right, guys, welcome back to another Nerd Enthusiast podcast and video. Today, we're going to tell you about great sponsors. We've got to make sure that we let you know about them, and please support them. They support us, and it keeps us going. TheSlotSquad.com. You can go check them out. I stream on there. A couple other guys stream on there now. We've just basically doubled the amount of slot streamers we have on that site. And we do casino games every night. We do poker, video poker, craps now. We've done all kinds of cool stuff. On there, you can watch live, you can ask questions, and they have some of the best deposit bonuses for literally any legal state. And I feel like every day I wake up now, there's like another legal state. They're like, oh, yeah, there's sports betting over here.
Yeah.
So we have all the sign-up bonuses for all those sites. So stop by theslotsquad.com, twitch.tv/theslotsquad. So, yeah, check it out. Thanks, guys. Going on to our last section, movie/book review, but more movie review. We are doing Cincinnati Kid. We got a lot to say about this, good, bad. We're going to touch on some stuff. This is a original first edition book, The Cincinnati Kid, but we're going to talk mostly about the movie. I had read this many years ago, probably about 10 years ago now. Brian just read it recently, and he had never seen the movie. I've seen the movie before. I just rewatched it before this review. Brian watched it firsthand, so I kind of want to get his perspective, and obviously there's some things we're going to get a little deeper into what happens in the book versus the movie. But Cincinnati Kid, this is my second favorite movie of all time, poker-related, behind Rounders.
Yeah.
It's an older movie. You want to do a little synopsis about it first?
Yeah, so it was produced in 1965 is when it hit the screen. The main character is played by Steve McQueen. He was like a very, very popular actor in the 60s, 70s. Some of the other people, Margret, if you don't know who she is, look her up. She was like an absolute smoke. She's been in a lot of movies throughout the years. I think she's like in her 70s now, and she still looks good. No, I'm not even kidding. Edward Robinson, he plays like the bad guy, so to speak. He's been in a lot of movies, and there's other actors. Again, this isn't our era, so we wouldn't really recognize anyone, but Steve McQueen I recognized, and Margaret I recognized, and I'm sure if you're an older generation and you haven't seen this, or you have, there's probably people that would stand out to you, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So the movie takes place in New Orleans, whereas the book takes place in St. Louis, so there are some pretty significant differences between the two. So with the book, I just got to preface this. This book was written in 1963, and this was like at the peak of the civil rights movement. So there's some very, I would say, colorful words in here. If you do decide to read the book, like, don't kill the messenger. We're just letting you know that some of the things that you might read might come across as offensive to either, certain races or to certain genders. But you got to remember when this book was written. I'm not saying we're going to be advocates for it because the book was good. It's a quick read. It was enjoyable. I read it literally in probably 4 hours.
The book takes turn, and I felt bad because I gave it to Brian. I'm like, check this out. I read it about 10 years ago, and I didn't realize there were some like racial stuff in there. But no, but still, like, so that is the thing. If you get easily offended by this is probably not your book. I don't want to like promote cancel culture because I'm not for that. But at the same time, I'm not going to say that this was right. But I think the movie makes up for it a lot, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I think, it took the right perspective in a lot of things, especially right at the civil rights moment that was happening at the time. What do you think? So the main character, when you read about the main character, and then you saw him for the first time, how did that fit or not fit your kind of thought?
I think they did a great job casting
McQueen.
Yeah, like he fit the mold of who I pictured in the book.
Okay.
Like, bad boy, kind of had that like good looking dude, had the edge to him. Like I said, I felt like they did a really good job of casting the character, and he did a great job playing the role of, the way they portray him in the book. I think of everyone, he fit the mold of the characters. Like some of the other guys in the book, like the protagonist is what I guess the word would be, like the bad guy, Lancey. He didn't fit it to me. I pictured him different in the book.
Yeah.
But the actor in the movie did great in that role. But again, I'm no like movie, critic. I think it worked. The guy, he did a good job.
So, okay, little overview. Steve McQueen plays Eric Stoner, and he's an up-and-coming 5-card stud poker player. He's hustling down south. I think the book took place in, Missouri or St. Louis?
No, the book's in St. Louis, yeah.
Now, the movie is New Orleans. So, down south, he's hustling, and he's just playing all these underground games. Pretty much everybody owes him money. He's just pretty much like the local legend, right? He's like the kid, the local legend. This main, like I said, what's his name? What's his?
In the book, it's Lancey Hodges, but in the movie, it's
Lancey Howard, right?
Yeah, Lancey Howard.
Lancey Howard is like, let's pretend like, I don't know, the Phil Hellmuth of the world at the time, right? He's like the known champion.
Yeah.
He's the man, they call him, right? And he's like the best. And so he travels around, and pretty much what he does is he pretty much gets into all these rich home games that get invited to, kind of like these players do today. Like they get invited to these rich home games because these guys want to say, hey, I played with Phil Ivey. I played with Phil Hellmuth.
That's exactly what it is.
And so he goes around and he plays in all these rich games, and he just soaks up all this money, and everyone just is like happy to pay him money to say that I played with Lancey Howard, or I took a pot off Lancey Howard. So he's going around doing this like high stakes hustling. But to get to that level, you got to be known as the man, right? You got to be at that level. I mean, they don't have World Series of Poker bracelets at the time, but this is like, the legend. You have to beat him. So Cincinnati Kid finds out the man, Lancey, is coming to town.
Yep.
Lancey's playing a high-stakes game, and they kind of have a dealer that's kind of both worlds. He deals in the high-stakes games and kind of floats in that level, but he also mentors the kid a little bit as well. What's that guy's name? I forget what his name was. Shooter, right?
Yeah.
Shooter is kind of like his mentor, and he's like he's supposed to be a straight angled, guy, doesn't cheat ever, and they can trust him.
He's well respected.
Yeah. And so he sets up the game. He sets up the game between Lancey and the Cincinnati Kid. And they have this like epic ending game that goes into it. That's finally happened.
It's like 2 days long. They have dealers come in. They have a whole bunch of decks. That whole thing was pretty cool with the deck. So, not to give anything away, they bring in...
This movie's 60 years old. Dude, it's crazy. It's 60 years old. We can give it away. If you haven't seen it...
Before the game starts, they bring in a bag of decks, and they dump them on the table. And the two, the kid and Lancey, they're like smelling the decks. They're like, smacking them, and they're throwing decks to the side. And you're like, what the hell are they doing? So I didn't understand that part, but they explain it more in the book.
Because there was a lot of cheaters.
Yeah, a lot of cheaters, like a loaded deck. There was ways that people could set up the deck in such a way that you could feel like a difference in the weight of the cards or whatever the case may be. So a lot of the decks right off the bat are like done. And then any time a player would call for a new deck had to be dealt, and they would rip up the old deck and get rid of it.
You got to realize, you know what? I should have brought him over here. You got to realize, too, though, back in the day, they had those, bicycle cards. So those cards were able to be marked quick. You could bend them real easily. I don't want to say they were bicycle in there, but they were that style. They weren't like the plastic cards where it's harder to bend.
They were cheap. Yeah.
They're cheap. They're cheaper, really, made, so you could easily mark them and do stuff. So that's why they constantly could rip them or, do different things to use it. The other thing, too, if you saw, he was looking up in the light to make sure there was no mirrors. Yeah. Because they would do that, and they would use mirrors to reflect, if it was a certain kind of light, you could get an angle and see, the color of a card. Now, anyone that does, that's one thing that, if you're not in the poker world, you wouldn't really understand. You'd be like, how could someone see that fast? But us playing, when a card flashes, and you're like, I think that was a 6 of hearts, and you saw, a microsecond of it. So if you had really skilled and you had a little piece of glass you could reflect off, and because they're bending the card a little bit, dude, that's a huge edge for a player back in the day, and they would do that for cheating purposes.
Yep. So, like you said, it pretty much culminates in this big epic game that the man is playing the kid, and I think that was the one analogy that I liked the most. And I don't know if you picked up on it, the kid wanted to become the man. You know what I mean? So his whole goal was to have that moniker of the man. And he said it a couple times in the movie, he's referred to as the kid, but he's like, if I can beat Lancey, then I'll be the man. And I don't necessarily know if he'd be called the Cincinnati Man or whatnot, but I think that the moral of the story is like he wants to get the infamy that this guy has, and he's striving to become him, like the persona of the man. He wants to be the best stud player known. And he's already, I mean, he already has the reputation because this guy Lancey even says, you know, oh, I've heard about you, and he even agrees to sit down with them.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like it's an honor to sit down with Lancey, even if you don't have the bankroll for it or whatever the case may be. Like it's an honor to sit down with him.
It's just it's just the same thing. To say that you did.
Yeah, say that you
to
did.
Say that you were in there in the game. So I'm going to jump to the movie a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the civil rights stuff post civil rights, because this came out in 65, and what civil rights movement was 64, right? I think when they signed, right, in 1964. Am I thinking right?
It was during that time period. Yeah,
I want to say 64. I'm sorry if I'm not giving you the right, but I think it was 64. So here's the thing too with the movie. I thought that a couple things I liked. I thought that it was cool they showed the New Orleans culture.
Yeah,
because I feel that. There was probably a lot of people that saw us and were like, oh, what is this? And they were probably hating that there was so much in there that they might be like, oh, you know, they don't want to see the black culture. I thought that was cool. Now, two little trivia I found as I was doing a little digging. The opening scene, they show a New Orleans funeral.
Yep.
And they show, I forget what the name of the band is, if I can find it. There was a band that plays, and they kind of celebrate after a funeral. Like, it's almost like a parade in New Orleans. They celebrate, and I forget what the name of it is. That same band, I was like, where did I see this before? That was also in Live or Let Die in the James Bond movie. They used that same band because remember he was in New Orleans. I don't know if you ever saw that James Bond movie.
No.
Okay, but they used the same band from that opening scene. I also liked some of the scenes like where they showed like the bands were practicing. That one scene where he like kind of dips into that one house when he's walking home the one night, and the girl's in there singing.
Yeah.
I forget who that is, but she was like a local singer I think at the time, or like a famous singer. In that culture. So I thought that was cool. And there was also a black male playing in the high stakes game. I don't remember what his name was in the movie. So, I mean, I feel like that was probably, you know, right after the civil rights movement comes into place. Now you have a movie where you're talking about black culture. You have black players in the game. Like, that was probably revolutionary for the moment.
That was huge, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's probably a lot of, like, white supremacists that were like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? Like, they were probably pissed seeing
pissed that it came out.
Yeah, but I think it probably, I didn't really dig too much into that, but I think that probably the time that was probably a little ahead of its time having that in there, so it was cool to see. Because the movie and the book actually are supposed to take place, I think, in like the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, I think so that was the point, was to go back a little bit. Like, I think that they weren't filming it with the thought that it's in the 60s. They're filming it like it's in like the 30s or 40s. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was cool. The whole New Orleans culture, you're getting to see a taste of that. I can't remember. Did they talk about why they actually call him the Cincinnati Kid? Was he just because he's from Cincinnati? Do you remember? Was there anything in there about that?
I don't remember now. I don't think there was anything in the book that would explain why he had that. It's just that he came up from when he was a kid. Like, it talks a lot about like when he was 16, and then he like that's how he started playing, and then he would be going to all the local card rooms. He traveled like the South, and he went to a bunch of different places, and like I said, he built his reputation by playing different types of games. Like, you know, this guy's a degenerate because they say like, oh, you know, I didn't really like 21 because of this reason, or like I shot some craps, but I don't really like it because of this reason, and like I tried doing draw, but draw wasn't my thing, and like that's when stud was his game, and then that's what he kind of honed in on, and like even in the movie, like there's a scene where like right before the game starts, he's like studying like percentages and like things like that,
and that was like way ahead of the time too, because I read some books, and like, you know, reading and stuff like that was not really available, and a lot of players were very they kind of held to their own. Like, they really didn't share information with other players. So like little tips and tricks, that was like, you might have a small circle, but very rarely did you ever trade secrets. That's
where the movie missed in little things that the book was like the differences. So the relationship in the book between the Cincinnati Kid and Shooter was that mentor, like he was shaping him to be a better player. Like, wasn't necessarily giving him tips, but it would be like you would go to someone that you trust. I'm like, yo, how do you think I played this? Or how do you think I played like, and the questions that were kept asking, like, do you think I'm ready? Do you think I'm ready? And like, Shooter would say like, oh, I think you're ready. Like, you got it. As long as you do this, and like in the movie, you miss that because they don't develop that relationship. Like, that they're close friends,
Yeah.
but you don't see that like mentor to student type thing.
And, like the kind of, so a couple things here. One, if you watch this movie, you're going to see a lot. Rounders doesn't, I don't think, ever give direct credit to Cincinnati Kid, but there's definitely a lot of plot lines you can see happening in Rounders that are very similar or kind of on the same page as Cincinnati Kid.
Yep.
The one thing too that was highly reflective of that is like Knish to Shooter.
Yeah.
But Shooter is a mix of Knish and Worm in one.
Yep. They kind of create two different personas.
Mm-hmm. There's like beforehand he's like Knish, and then he kind of screws him over and he becomes more of a Worm. But so like at the end, I guess I'm gonna have to say he loses, and he loses like almost everything. Like he loses his boy, right? He loses his mentor. He loses
his chick.
Well,
you don't know if he lost his chick,
but he loses kind of some respect with like because he bangs the one dude's wife.
He loses who he is. Yeah. Really, like
he just kind of loses everything. He loses to the man, and now all of a sudden it's just like, okay, you lost your best friend, you lost everything that you've been building up to get to this point, and just kind of like went degenerate mode, and And then the other thing too is he also, I mean, this is something that you got to think of like as an actual gambler. We see it. So the guy that the high stakes dude. Oh man, what's his name? The guy that was kind of back in the deal.
Oh, Slade.
Slade, right?
Mm-hmm.
You now lose that interest because that dude had tons of cash and he was willing to back the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And not that he should have played into that guy's hands, but now he's never gonna be able to get money out of that dude or borrow or back from that dude. So that he burnt that bridge. Like just everything gets toasted for him. But you know who I liked a lot in the movie, and I can't remember if she was in the book, was Ladyfingers.
Yeah, she was in the book.
I like how she totally would needle him at every chance. She's like, "Oh, you're looking good, just like so and so," but he just died last week. Or like, she totally would needle him.
You're talking about Lancey.
Yeah, she would needle Lancey all the time, and it was actually, I'm like, that's like poker. That's like poker talk right there. Like women and men. Like, it was pretty cool.
That was the good thing about like the movie over the book allowed to develop some of the like the extra characters that the book kind of just like, oh, this is this person, this is that person. But yeah, like they gave a little bit more, I guess, roles for these peripheral players, like people that weren't really involved in the main story. Like Slade, he wasn't even in the book, and his whole storyline wasn't even a part of the book. So, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to give it away. Like basically, Slade to me was like, I don't know if he was a gangster because he had like a henchman or whatever it was, but
I felt like he was like just an old school like plantation owner or something. Like he had that like vibe of like just old money, rich, just had tons of money. He
definitely had loot because he gets smoked by Lancey and he's bitter about it. So then he goes to Shooter and he's like, look, I'm putting a bunch of money on the kid to win. I'm gonna need you to pretty much deal him a solid deck. So basically he puts him in like this moral dilemma of like, what do I do? Like, do I cheat for the kid to get him to win? And that becomes an issue in the movie where the kid's like, look, he finds out that Shooter's cheating for him, and he pretty much calls him out and is like, look, if I'm gonna win, I want to do it my way. I can beat him. Mm-hmm. And like you said, he winds up losing, and all his bridges are burnt because that's essentially what Slade now loses the bet, loses more money,
loses two chicks, I think, in one.
It's like so.
Okay, so here I wrote this down. It just reminded me of this. I think the only most unrealistic thing in the movie is this scene. Slade's got a gun range in his house. Yeah. He's got a gun range in his house, and no one has ear protection on.
Yo.
He's like shooting, and like his wife's like, "You want something to eat?" I'm like, "How is no one covering their ears right now?
Yeah.
You're in a closed area, and he's just shooting like a Colt 45 or something. Like, it's not a BB gun. Like he's shooting a real gun in there, and everyone's just like, "Oh, okay, no big deal." I'm like, dude, if that was in a house in that alley that he has set up, it'd be so loud, your ears would just blow out.
All right. So the two things that I was like, is this for real? So in the movie, they had the live cockfight.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, and so okay, this movie's gonna get canceled. Book's gonna get canceled. Doing racism. PETA's gonna be pissed that there's cockfighting. There's cockfights going on.
No, the book is canceled. The book is canceled because of racism and misogyny. And the movie's going to be canceled for animal cruelty.
I forgot about those cockfights. Yeah, they have literally cockfights in the movie.
Like the one, like the blood gets splurted on the dude's shirt. Oh man,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So there's and then there's one scene, and I don't know if you'll catch it. So Lancey, throughout the whole movie, he's just nonstop smoking cigars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like he's getting ready to go to bed. He's going to bed. And he puts a cigar in his mouth and like lays back and closes his eyes. I'm like, yo, is he gonna go to sleep with that stogie in his mouth? Like, and it's like a cut scene, but like it's legit, like him laying down, like getting ready for the tournament the next day, and he's got this huge fat stogie in his mouth. I'm like, yo, that hotel's gonna burn down. But look, yeah. I mean, the movie was I was pleasantly surprised because of how old it was, and it was my first time seeing it. Like, I know you probably saw it.
I've seen it a handful
way
of times.
back when, but
yeah, I like it a lot. One thing that I've been looking for, and this is just a personal note, I've been looking for an original print of those posters. There's a couple like posters. I got one up right here.
Mm-hmm.
They're super expensive to find, like not like a remake, like an original poster of that. I have a couple original, like that's an original, that one, not the rounders, but that one. A couple in my man cave, and that's always one I've wanted. The Cincinnati Kid. That's like a super luxury item. If like I ever just came in a stupid amount of money, like I would get one of these original posters, but from the theatrical release, because they're really hard to find. They're really expensive to find, But they're, I think it was a movie that showed a world at the time that wasn't really completely understood, like kind of like Rounders was when that came out. It showed that underground world of things that were happening, that were taking place. And the one thing that I thought was cool. From just doing my own research and seeing stuff and obviously we haven't seen this. The one scene where he goes in and they're booking action in that pool hall. Remember, it's like grimy.
Yeah.
But see, that's how it was. Like a lot of stuff that I've read over the years, like the pool hall was the local degenerate hangout.
Yeah, where everyone went.
That's where you went to book action. That's where the card games were. That's if you want to find action, you want to one to a town. Like it's kind of like saying where's the local bar nowadays. If you want to find like where to drink or. If you want an action, be like, dude, where's the local pool hall?
Yep.
And that was the spot that you would go to get it, and find out what was going on. And that was like that was also the communication hub too. So you would find out what games were going on elsewhere. So like that was your main hangout to find out where everything else was going on. So I did like that scene because it was very true at the moment of what was happening.
Yeah, I would listen. I mean, it's worth a watch. It's like maybe 90 minutes long. It wasn't that long at all. It was like an hour and a half. You can get it on Amazon Prime right now for a rental. It's like $3.
Yeah.
Or you could catch it on like Turner Classic Movies. I know I've seen it before, like scrolling through, like, but I never knew what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
It's definitely on like AMC. Like you definitely will catch it on. Cable TV or whatever you got, or you can just check it out on Prime. I would check it out. It's definitely better than some of the movies that we've already reviewed.
Yeah. Like I said, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I mean, and as long as you're not easily offended, you'll probably like this if you're a poker player. It's definitely worth the watch. And the last hand, so I won't talk about the hand and what it was, but I looked up the odds on that because here's what you got to remember. It's 5-card stud. It's not 7-card, and it's not 7-card community with like no limit hold'em. So the odds of that situation, because it seems like, oh yeah, it's this versus that, but you got to remember it's 5 cards direct.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 45 million to 1 odds for that hand to happen like heads up like that.
Yeah.
They were like running the odds on it. So it's basically like a bad beat jackpot almost, like for that situation to occur.
And how it plays out, you're like, come on.
But you know what? That is one of the best lines in the world, though, in the gambling world, when Lancey Howard says, sometimes you just got to make
the wrong move at the right time.
And that's true, though. It's like sometimes you just do something stupid.
Listen, that happens more often than not.
Just in life, too. Not even just in poker. Like, you make the wrong move and it just ends up working out. And you're like, okay.
And we'll end it on this. And I'll say this, that's absolutely true because, and one of our buddies bust my chop about it because the one tournament that I won that was like a big deal for me, I got it in with like the worst hand of the 3, and I wound up spiking like I'll tell you, it was like ace king, ace jack, and I had ace 8, and I was short stacked. I got it in, and I wound up spiking an 8 and tripling up, and then I went on the win. And like, I'm not saying it's the wrong move, but like,
Yeah,
my buddy's like, "Oh, how could you get it in there against 2 other people?" And I'm like, "Dude, yo, sometimes the worst hand wins, and that's the beauty of poker. Sometimes even though you're supposed to win, you don't."
But yeah, I like that. So, guys, thanks for checking us out. Listening to the podcast this month. Make sure you follow us on our Twitter, Eat a Hoagie. What's yours now? You got to make yours a little more simpler.
It's Brian Keene 0513.
0513. Okay.
Yeah. I can change the
yeah,
moniker.
you can change it to just be like not the man Keen or.
All right, I'll change it.
You can make it like real simple.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow us elsewhere though. We also have a wrestling podcast. We also have a video game podcast. We have videos for each of those as well. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like literally everything. You can check all those out. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, whatever, drop them down below on the YouTube videos or send us a message on Twitter. And we're always looking for new ideas and things to do.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely give us some feedback on ways that we can improve the podcast. And if there's a topic that you want us to cover or something like that, like, let us know.
Throw it out to us. All right. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.